Sweet.
All right. Hey, it's Mike Belfor recording yet another podcast with my good friend DJ Campagna and Peluma, one of the rock stars. Actually, I call him the rock star agent of Sonoma County and someone I've known for, gosh,
Oh, come
15
on
years.
now.
What's going on, DJ? How you doing today, bro?
More than that, dude. 'Cause we've
Yeah,
known each other for longer than that. 'Cause I used to sell you bikes when I was a bike sales guy.
yeah. Well, I don't know, 15. How
Yeah.
long ago was that then?
So
2008?
it's got to be 20 years.
You think
It's got
so?
to be 20 years.
Okay. Probably is. Probably is. Yeah, for
I
sure.
think so. Yeah, because you're doing the bike stuff with me, Moran, and Petaluma, and then then of course I was having coffee with Barton, my mentor, and then ran into you at the coffee shop. It's funny. I knew you all those years. I had no idea that you were a lender, and you're like, "Yeah, dude, I'm a lender." But I was like, "Oh, go crazy!" And then all of a sudden we started doing stuff, and it was like it was like magic. It was the way it's supposed to be.
I remember shooting the breeze with you at church, like one day too. I was like
Yeah.
doing Sunday school and kids ministry at Calvary Chapel
Yeah.
Petaluma, and you're like right there. I'm like, bro, what's going on, man? And
Oh
you're
yeah.
checking our church. I remember that, and that must have been 2010 or 11. Now your kids are all grown, right? But
Yeah, because Cole was like 3 or 4, so
yeah,
that would have been like 2010, 11, and Christopher was maybe like this big.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now he's 6'5".
yeah, dude.
Yeah. So
Everybody's taller than me, man. I got stumped even by my family. I'm 5'10", and my entire family's 6'2", 6'3". I'm like, why me?
well,
Um,
your name is Lender Smurf.
yeah, I did exactly right. Electric Smurf.
Oh man.
Love it, bro. What's the vibe right now in Sonoma County, man? What are you seeing with buyer, seller psychology, all that good stuff? What's the status right now, bro?
Okay, so overall Sonoma County, there's a lot of downward pressure on pricing because A, there's a ton of inventory,
Yeah.
and then B, there's buyers are slowly kind of figuring out what they want to do. So the inventory has exploded. There used to be like 1 or 2 months worth of inventory, and
Yeah.
now we're definitely at a balanced market on the edge of a buyer's market with like 5 to 6 months worth of inventory overall in Sonoma County.
It's crazy.
Um, in the microcosms, like Bennett Valley in Santa Rosa is usually pretty hot, but in city-wise, Petaluma continues to be relatively hot as far as real estate goes. We do have 3 times more inventory than we've had for the past 4 years. For the past 4 years, it's been like 30 to 40 houses on the market. I was just looking yesterday. I think that there's a little over, I think it's like 102 houses on the
Wow.
market in Petaluma. So, but that's not, and that's including some country properties that are like $15 million and some other stuff that have been on the market for over a year. But the houses in the 800 to like 1.3 range, if they're priced right, they move. If they're not priced right, they sit. There's there's an overwhelming amount of people who they'll see a house that's been on the market for 60 days. That's it. Let's just say it's at 1,050,000. The house should be 1 million. They're not writing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's a mistake. Get the conversation going. If the house should be 1 million and your realtor can say, hey, this is why the house should be 1 million, they should be able to write that offer, get it going, and make it happen. I'm not saying that every house that's sitting is overpriced, but there's a lot of houses that are sitting that are overpriced, and price fixes almost everything.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we're trying to see the slowdown. Everybody's watching the news. Everybody's kind of concerned. So I think psychology is like the markets too, right? I mean, you're definitely seeing people a little bit more gun shy to do anything because of what's been taking place, with jobs or concerns of jobs and unemployment. And of course, everything that we have going on with tariffs and all that crazy stuff. People are just, I think, gun shy as buyers too. Are you seeing buyers step out of the market or buyers are still pretty active? Would you say?
I've closed 2 buyers in the past month, and one of them is cash. I mean, she's selling a house down in Irvine. She's buying a house up in here. We close next week. And then the other buyer I closed, she'd been looking for 6 months using another realtor, wasn't getting anywhere writing offers, and she came to me and I helped her write an offer. The first house she wrote an offer and she got it.
Wow.
So there are, and I got a phone call today from the folks I sent to you, Mario and Sarah. They've already own a house and they don't have to buy, but they want to buy something bigger. And the good news for them is that they get to keep the house that I sold them a couple of years ago, and they're going to use it as a rental. So good for them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Very
So,
cool.
so to answer your question, there are buyers out there, but I think where those buyers may have been like looking at these $1 million+ properties at a 2% mortgage, now
Yeah.
that the mortgage is like 6.5, 7%, they're going from 1 million down to like 800. They're just adjusting their expectations. So realistic people with realistic expectations are still able to buy us.
Are you still, so are you saying like the best price points right now that are moving probably 7 to 800,000, or what are you seeing with
And
price points as far as
yeah, Santa Rosa, yeah, that's seven, dude. I'm telling you, Santa Rosa, 700 to like 900 in Santa Rosa. There's a ton of inventory, so
yeah,
there's great options. You don't have to buy the only house.
okay,
There's a ton. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's tons of options in that price point.
yeah,
Petaluma, you're like 800 and up for something you can move into, right? If there is stuff in that price range that's a total fixer, whatever. But yeah, that price point 800 up, and it's crazy to think that $1 million is a first time home buyer house in
yeah.
Petaluma.
That is crazy. I mean, that's so crazy. I mean, but it's weird to think. I mean, I remember Petaluma 2010
Yeah,
when you're still at Mike's, man. We bought that
yeah,
condo or townhouse on Country Road Court, which
yeah,
is in East Petaluma, right by Casa Grande High School. And that one got for 200K or just above that. And but most properties are listed for like you can find a starter home for 3 to 350. And there's like
yeah,
300 properties on the market then. But of course, that was just after the Great Recession, right?
yeah,
So there's a lot, it's a little bit different of a market. Interest rates did come down then. And people are like, well, with recessions, what do they think? Well, interest rates come down during recessions generally. We see
yeah,
things calm down, the bond markets come down. So if we do enter into a recession, that means good news for interest rates. I don't know if we ever hit the 2.5, 3%, but I think where we were then, 5%. I
yeah.
think that's something we could probably look to again at some point, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, we even saw peaks last year, man. But yeah, so I mean, what advice are you giving buyers? It sounds like the advice is just write the offer, right? If
Yeah,
it's something that's in your range.
the advice now they tell people is if you like the house, you like the condition, you can afford the payment,
Yeah,
write the offer, and because if you can fix all the things you don't like about the house, color, kitchen, whatever, if you have the bandwidth to take some of that stuff on, write the offer.
yeah,
Don't sit on it because somebody else is going to write the offer and then you're not going to get it. All
right,
right. The
right.
other thing I'm telling buyers now is, hey, you don't have to, depending on what the property is, because every property is different, but if the property is, sorry, if the property is, there's choice. I tell people now, I'm like, this isn't 2021 where when the house comes on, you got to buy it within 10 seconds, or you're not going to get it. Now I say, look, you got some choice. There's not a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah,
Let's get you, let's get you to Mike. Let's get you not pre-approved, but let's get you underwritten so that when we do find a house, we can just write an offer and close in 2 weeks because
yeah,
that's sexy for the seller.
yeah. And that helps, especially if you're sitting. If you turn around and say you're going to close in 12 days, I'm sure it just makes you look that much more competitive, kind of
Yeah,
beating out, or just looking attractive. Even if there's another offer you're seeing for 60 days. Hey, Mr. Seller, you're selling for 1 million. Let's sell for 950, get a credit, but we're going to close this bad boy in
yeah,
12 days. You want to close it in August, so you're going to have to pay that September mortgage payment. That makes sense,
yeah.
right? So
And I
all
tell
that makes sense.
buyers, I'm still kind of giving the same advice as I did even when the market was scorching hot, which was, and this isn't to blow honey up your skirt, but is to get in front of Mike Belfor or your favorite lender and get all of your paperwork dialed in so that we can make an offer when that house does show up.
Yeah,
Because again, I get people who call me like, "Oh, I want to start looking." And I say, "Okay, great. Tell me about how you're going to pay for it. If they're paying cash, great. If they're doing a lender, I say, tell me about your lender." Like, "Oh, I haven't done any of that yet." I say, "Well, let's talk to the lender before we go look because you may think you can do 1 million, but you can really only do like 9
yeah,
or 8 or whatever the number is."
right, right,
So,
right. It makes sense.
yeah,
I mean, for sure. And then I guess inventory. So there's a little bit more inventory.
yeah.
But are you seeing case by case in that seven? You're probably not seeing Petaluma at 7 to 800,000, are you?
I mean, a $700,000 house in Petaluma is like a fixer. I have a house coming up on the west side that's probably going to be in that pres.
Okay.
On the west side of Petaluma, $700,000 is going to be a fixer.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty.
yeah, I mean, that would be one of those price points like, man, if you could buy 700K in Petaluma, that'd be insane, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And this place I have coming up, it would be lendable because it does have a kitchen. There's no obvious safety concerns with it. If they'd be able to get a traditional financing on it.
Well,
With a
I
fix.
mean, if you're putting a substantial down payment trick, and I'm not saying to do this by any means, there's a disclaimer for anybody listening, because you still want to do your own inspections, evaluate
Yeah,
the property, but you may not need an appraisal. If they put enough money down, you could get an appraisal waiver,
yeah,
because if the property shows up in the system with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you get something called the AVM, which is an automated valuation model. It gives you
yeah,
an appraisal waiver saying we don't need to appraise the property because the comparable sales are there. Of course, you
yeah,
want to make sure that it is habitable, it's safe, but just a little footnote for those curious. that sort of thing
Yeah.
is available if there's a substantial down payment.
Well, we've
Uh,
done that. We've done that at least a dozen times. You and I have done deals where a person's putting down 25%. Like I want to say maybe Seth and Michelle got that because they bought a house in a subdivision. Every other
yeah,
house is the same. We
yeah,
put in our offer. It came back with an AVN. It was like boom. Yeah,
yep.
no appraisal. So you have to
That,
write the offer and get it submitted before you can get the AVN, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we get it right away. Like, so that's the first thing we do. So, for most lenders that run AVMs are okay with using automated valuation model. What they'll generally do is like the application started, they get all the information in, and then they'll run it. And what I mean by running it, they'll run either the Fannie Mae system called Desktop Underwriter or the Freddie Mac system, Loan Prospector. Either of those, if it shows up as a what we say a PIW, it's a property inspection waiver. It's essentially an automated valuation model that the system used to look at comparable sales that would justify that property's value so you don't need an appraisal. And then it's back to the
Yeah.
client. You can say, hey, do you want to order an appraisal anyway? 9 out of 10 times I'll say, no, we're fine. If it's appraising and the system's reading it as fine, why waste the money? 750 on an appraisal these days. And I remember
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
$300, right? But now they're, it's a little bit more, but they're like, yeah, let's just run with it. And that's where we get to close transactions candidly in about 10 days because you
Yeah.
have that part taken care of, which is pretty
Totally.
cool. Um,
We're getting into the weeds there, buddy.
yeah, sorry, a very detailed response. That's why you don't
And
ask me
people,
questions. I'm just a guy who should just, oh,
the
yeah.
people out there are gonna be like, what is he talking about? Like they're like talking about like ninja level.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I promise I won't do that again. I won't also pitch my book that I just wrote either. But yeah. So I guess I mean, what are you seeing with inspections, concessions, appraisal gaps? Are you seeing like issues come up with listings right now? In that
Yeah, actually, great. That's a great question. I just closed 2011 Weatherby in Petaluma,
okay.
and we were on the market for 4 days.
Wow.
Received full price offer from Sean Payne over there at Live Explore,
Yeah.
and we knew that the roof was old, but they did a roof inspection, and the roof was dead. Like the roofers normally, Home Guard, they'll say, hey, we can service this roof. It'll be like $500. We can guarantee it won't leak for 10 years. I've seen dozens of their inspections where they said something along those lines. This is the first time I've ever heard them say, we can't do anything with this roof. It's dead.
Hmm.
You need a new roof.
Wow.
And the buyer was willing to go along with everything that we had disclosed up front, except for the fact that this house was really in need of a new roof. Sean Payne and I went back and forth a little bit, and he and I both pretty much agreed, him a little more stronger than me, that this buyer could probably buy a house that's $10,000 more that would have a brand new roof on it, or buy a house at the same price that would have a roof that had a number of years left on it. So after a little bit of back and forth with the seller, I said, hey, look, we don't want to come back to market. We've got a full price offer. They're going to close in 3 days. We should give them a credit for the roof because
Yeah.
the roof's not serviceable anymore, and it's more than 30-year-old roof. And the sellers were kind of like, well, we don't really like that, but you know what? Great, because they bought the house 30 years ago on the east side of Petaluma. They were, whatever they bought it for is a quarter of what they sold it for. So they
Right.
were kind of like, yeah, we don't really want to give up the money, but at the end of the day, we don't want to pay for 2 more months of mortgage, 2 more months of PG&E, 2 more months of having it sit there and all that kind of stuff. Because that, at the end of the day, if we sat on the market for 2 more months, even though we're going to give them a credit for $18,000, that difference was going to be like 4 grand. So they were like, you know what, just let's go ahead and do it and close. And you know what, the sellers are happy, the
Yeah.
buyers are happy, Sean's happy, and I'm happy. So everybody's happy.
And that's at the end of the day, that's what we talk about creating the win-win. And you're so good at
Yeah,
negotiations for that reason. We were talking about, I know 3 years ago when rates started to peak up a little bit in 2000, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Well, we
yeah,
started that
3 years ago.
jump. Yeah. And we're like looking at like, getting the seller to create a buy down on behalf of the buyer. And
Yeah,
you were talking about,
yeah,
temporary buy downs then. And they actually work for a lot of our clients where we did temporary buy down because there is that glimpse of time. We just had one about a week and a half ago where interest rates dipped. We were able to take advantage of our free refinance for a lot of our clients and then come back into it. And it's like, yeah, you can get that payment you want. The seller pays for the buy down. So the seller still actually walks away with what they wanted in net. The buyer gets
yeah.
the payment that they wanted. You're the king of negotiation. I noticed that with that. So that's good, man. That's a great story. So what sort of issues are you thinking that maybe more lenders or more agents or buyers understood? in this market?
Issue wise, I mean, I think that the issues that I see are, because I have more listings than I have buyers right now, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
But when I get an offer from a buyer, I see, um, there are a lot of agents who have a super well presented offer, like Sean Ping, honestly, and then this other one, Lauren Wilcox, on 22 Lori.
Yeah.
The offers were presented, their buyers were prepared, they are going to close. There's no drama. They really have a ton of value. So that's great. I've received other offers. I'm not going to name who they are, but like on my Lori listing and on my I can't remember the other one I had. Look at the board here. On Banff and then on Round Oak, where the offers were like they didn't check the boxes for who's getting represented. They're asking for 3% commission. Their buyer's not prepared. Their buyer's not pre anything. There's like I got a letter from the lender says they're pre-approved. I'm like, what does that mean? If you review their credit, their income, their assets, do they have the cash to close? There's no proof of funds. There's so much missing from the offer that I'm like calling the agent, being like, hey, you sell a lot of houses. How are you getting? I need more info. I can't present this to I'm going to present to the seller, but we need more info.
Yeah.
So those are the issues I'm seeing with the presentation of offers.
Yeah.
That's why when I present an offer, I'm on the phone with you or the buyer's lender pretty tight, being like, hey, tell me exactly what we're doing here. And then so that we can write the best offer. And I make sure I go through the offer like 17 times, make sure I check all the boxes right, because who likes to go back and have a counter for not having boxes checked, because that's just going to goofy.
Or have the underwriter ask for it. It's the worst when the underwriter asks for it. I've seen those files where,
Yeah.
the underwriter like conditions for something to be completed that the agent's incomplete.
Yeah.
They're like, oh man, you see it with a lot of newer agents I noticed, right? And
Well,
yeah.
and even with so okay, and I was a new agent 8 years ago, right? And I remember my first offer I wrote it to Juliet Casaza, and she was the selling agent, and I have mistakes because they don't teach you any of that stuff at real estate school, right? They teach you nothing, right?
No, but you know how many feet are in or square feet are in an acre?
I have no idea.
It's like
They got rid
4,000.
of the math.
Well, that was one of the questions, dude. That's the big joke with everybody, right? Like
Like
it's
the
four.
size of a football field. I tell people, they're
Yes.
like, how big is an acre? He said it's nearly the same size as a football field. It's like 90% or something, 96% of the size of a football field. But the thing is that so I love being in a position to be able to help anybody. If
Yeah.
I can help the seller, if I can help the buyer, if I can help the realtor.
Yeah.
I don't know everything,
Yeah.
right? I'm so far away from knowing everything, it's ridiculous, but I know how to help people. And Juliet, when I wrote that offer, I didn't check the boxes. Who represents who, right? There was all sorts of crap. And she's like, hey, let me help you fix this stuff. Let's help you get an offer that's going to get accepted. So, like, I got an offer on Lori from this guy who sold, I swear to God, he sold 18 houses in the past 12 months. There were so many problems. And I said, hey, let me help you with this a little bit. And he was sort of like not receptive to any of it. And his buyer didn't get a house. So,
It'll happen like that too. I noticed that a lot of times. And I was talking to a client who was trying to buy, and I was trying to push her over to you as well, or refer her to you, should I say. And working with a agent who is not responsive. And we're starting to see that a lot in this industry too, where you just don't have responsive agents. Like I could call you, yes, I blow you up every Monday, but it's just because you're
yeah,
my friend. I want to check
I
in and
look
say,
forward
hey.
to it.
But yeah, I like calling you to say, hey, and I sat on some of your office meetings because I love your team. But it's funny because I think it's so important to be there and be current. And this gal wanted to make an offer and she couldn't get a hold of the agent because I said maybe the
Brutal.
agent isn't full time anymore. But you want to make an offer on it. You want to represent your client. That's a fiduciary duty. You want a paycheck for a lot of these
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
You have to take care of the person in order to do so.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
think that a lot of people don't realize, because realtors get a bad rap out there, and they think that we, show two houses and get a $20,000 paycheck. It's just that's so far from the truth. But then you hear about these things where the agent's not calling anybody back or they're whatever, and that's what gives us all a bad name. Like that offer I got on 22 Lori from this agent. I was like, dude, he didn't even call. So if you present an offer, I call. I go, hey, Mike, this DJ, EXP Realty,
right,
got an offer for 22 Lori.
right.
And I sell you the buyer, I sell you the offer, I tell you everything about it. I give you the lender's phone number, and then I email the offer. And this guy, nothing. I get a call from the lender, and the lender's like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about the offer that we put in. I was like, what offer? And I in my junk folder couldn't find it. I call the agent, doesn't answer. 3 or 4 hours later, he calls me back. He's like, did you get my I was like, dude, yeah, I got your offer, but I'm like, there's a million things wrong with the offer.
Yeah,
So, and that's what gives us a bad name because that guy is getting paid, but he's doing that kind of stuff, and it's horrible.
that's crazy. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's just, yeah, no, it's, integrity is everything, making sure that you're present, because there's that big word, it's the F word, fiduciary, which is a real
yeah.
estate term,
Oh, it is.
right? And it's a legal term, but it's important in real estate where we have a fiduciary duty to represent the client. And in order
Well,
to
there's two
do
F
so, you have
words.
to,
There's two F words. There's fiduciary, and then the other one is foundation.
yeah,
Because as soon as someone says, "What's wrong with the foundation?" You're like, "Oh no, the F word. Oh no."
yeah,
But
yeah.
you can fix the F word. At least that one you can fix it.
Yeah, and just take care of your clients. How hard is that? And that's why it's like I follow up. So if you're actively working with us, ask our clients. A lot of people
Yeah,
like don't call me every week, call me every month. That's cool, I'll do that. But
yeah,
call them every week, check in. How are things going? And then the same client, she's like, well, he's not sending me listings. How do I find properties? So I just jump on Trulia or like Zillow or
yeah.
or Trulia. I don't know if
And
she's, but I mean, I don't know if she said Trulia. I think she said Trulia. Is Trulia still around? I don't know.
truly
But
still around.
yeah,
This is actually a good. This is a good thing to know. So I can't remember the name of the program, but when I have a listing, this program takes all of the web traffic and then breaks it down into something that's easy to read and it tells you where all the web traffic's coming from,
hmm,
right?
that's cool.
And the crazy thing is that Zillow is responsible for like 75% of all traffic that goes to your property, right? And of
Wow.
course, Zillow is flexing their muscle and they've made it now so that if you market your property as a coming soon on the MLS, but you don't give it to them as well, then they will actually blackball you, which I know isn't, I don't even know if that's a PC word to say anymore, but they'll make it so that they'll make it so that none of your listings show up on Zillow.
That's gnarly.
It's totally gnarly. And I'm like, so I've blown up we should get it. This should be a whole podcast all on its own. I blew up the local MLS and I said, this is ridiculous. I pay my fees to you guys, not to Zillow. Zillow shouldn't be dictating how I do my business. If I want to have something off market for a little while and only want this people in this MLS to know, not the general public, that's my prerogative.
Prerogative.
It shouldn't be Zillow shouldn't be dictating that to me. That's ridiculous. So I
Yeah,
know
there's a
there's
lot of things with Zillow. I'm not a fan of Zillow for so many reasons.
well, remember the A in Zillow stands for accuracy. Remember that.
Yeah, as soon as I find that A. But
Exactly. Well, I mean, like, it's funny because people are like, oh, well, Zillow says my house is worth 1,000,000 too. And I'm like, and it could be worth 1,600,000 or it could be worth 1,000,000. I'm like, let me, a real estate professional, do a CMA, comparative market analysis, and show you real comps that are real similar and see if we can't laser that down to an exact number so we can sell your house.
well, I think they're trying to get better with that. To say like what it last sold for, and then like what it is estimated at now. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny. I always look at that property that I had on San Jose Way in Paloma that you're at
Yeah.
right by Miwok to
Yeah.
see where it's
Yeah.
going. Is estimating it at 858. Um, but I don't know.
Didn't
I
you
mean,
sell it for like eight something like 2 years ago?
yeah,
Yeah. So you know, the market keeps pace with inflation to a certain point,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then, but there's also supply and demand constraints, right? So you have an
right.
equilibrium supply and demand. If you don't have enough supply, prices go up, right? So, like, so as interest rates climb and as inflation climbs, the value of your house is going to go up or down a little bit based on those numbers. Now, we've been seeing this kind of appreciation, which has been because of what I would say hyperinflation. We're getting in the weeds of the world now again.
Yeah,
But right now we're not going to see this,
no,
right? We're not seeing this. We're going to
no,
see this to right about here flat.
yeah.
Okay. So like there's a house, 110 Banff, right around the corner from me. They sold it just recently for 1,000,001, and it was a relocation thing. I'd actually talked to the listing agent and to the seller, and then they sold it, and someone bought it, and then that person is getting relocated right away, so it's on the market again within a month. But they're going to sell it lower because of the fact that there is so much inventory, all these other things. If they didn't sell it for a year, they might actually get a little bit higher, but
Hmm.
they're doing it right away.
Yeah.
Actually selling it for I think $10,000 or $20,000. That's the listing price, 10 to 20 grand less than what they bought it for. So they're going to
Wow.
take a bit of a hit on it, but it's kind of is what it is. It's very close. So yeah, if you bought a house 6 months ago and you're going to sell it, you're not going to see much appreciation or gain.
Well, that's why I mean we have, as you know, we do our strike rate for free
We had
refinances.
this 5 years ago. Now we're down here.
Well, yeah, and we have our free refinances, as you know, for anybody who bought a property 6 months later, we like to do a free refinance and get a better rate when rates dip. They dipped about a week and a half ago, and people don't
Yeah.
understand they're probably not going to dip more this year. And the reason why is the Fed is already they're slated to probably lower interest rates next month. They'll do it again, maybe once or twice more before this year gets out. So we're already building that into pricing, or lenders, mortgage companies, what have you already are. So you're still seeing those rates today. So we're watching that.
Can
We had a
you can you elaborate a little bit for our viewers at home and also for me about how the interest rates that the Fed interest rate, how that actually does or does not affect mortgage rates and where mortgage rates are actually affected more from the bond market,
Yeah,
correct?
a
So
thousand percent.
can
Yeah.
you give us a condensed version of that a little bit?
Yeah. So real quick, so on this note, with the values of the property, if the value is less than, now the loan to value is higher. So then these people who are waiting to refinance, you want to see those values go up. So there's more of a margin to refinance to begin with. Now, that question of talking about how interest rates work. So the Fed rate doesn't dictate mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are based off of the bond market because it's a mortgage bond. It's called an MBS, or a mortgage bond security, or mortgage backed security, pardon. The other item is we tend to look at the 10-year treasury. And what most folks are looking at, and I've had several blog posts and I kind of wrote a couple articles about this, saying how we're all really hoping for that 10-year treasury to break 4%. We had a
Yeah.
couple of big dips last year, August, and then again in September. Then it kind of went up thereafter, where the 10-year treasury hit about 3.7. And
Okay.
as it hit 3.7, we saw interest rates for a 30-year fixed mortgage go to about 4%. After that, through the winter fourth quarter last year, first quarter this year, and even second quarter, we saw interest rates kind of go up a bit because of what they saw as far as strength in the job market. We saw
Yeah.
that even though the consumer price index stayed low, 2.5, 2.7%. It came out
Oh,
2.7
correct.
today, was
Yeah.
2.7 last month. So it's much lower than it was 9% 2 years ago. Still, the Fed rate's still higher. The Fed rate lowers that rate. It lowers the margin that banks receive, which means bonds should come down. And that would then mean if bonds come down, interest
Yeah.
rates come down. And that's really what it's tied to. The Fed does not have a complete, like, if the Fed rate's 4.5 or 4.25, it doesn't mean interest rates are 4.5, 4.25. It's completely different. What we look at is we look at mortgage
Yeah.
bonds or mortgage-backed securities, and we look at the 10-year bond market as just kind of a idea, right? Again, it's not going to be exact. If you see the 10-year treasury at 4.29 as it is today, doesn't mean your interest rates at 4.29, but it does mean that interest rates are going to be in this range, 6.5 to 7%, as we said. If it goes below
Yeah.
4%, you're back to interest rates back in the 5% range. And
So I think that what a lot of people are really gluing themselves to is the news, like, oh, Jerome Powell's going to lower the maybe he's going to lower the interest rate, and every single person I talk to says, oh, if that happens, I'll be able to afford to buy a house. I'm like, that's not actually how it works. And I think
no,
a lot of people they're so misinformed because even the people at the higher ups are saying that as well. Like, oh, if we lower interest rates, you'll be able to buy a house. I'm like, your car interest rate, if you're buying a new car, that'll be lower. Your credit card, if you're going to get a credit card, that'll be lower if they lower the interest rate. But your long-term debt on a mortgage, not going to go down right away if the interest rate goes down.
great. What will happen though, I think, is gas prices should come down to here, except for in California because we have extra gas taxes.
Yeah,
But grocery prices will come down a bit because
yeah,
you're almost wanting Powell to do it just so those things come down. When it comes to
yeah,
mortgage rates, because that's an overnight banking rate, whereas, as you
yeah,
said, a mortgage is a more long-term security rate. So it's short-term versus long-term. So you're right. Your APY, your credit card, your home equity lines of credit,
yeah,
loans, savings account APYs, those will all probably, change or come down a bit.
yeah,
But what would do that is that 10-year treasury and where
yeah,
mortgage bonds are. And then you'll see it dip. As it dips, of course, yeah, more people will be able to afford properties. We probably won't go back to 2.5, 3% though. There's just no way
no,
because we would need something pretty catastrophic like COVID to come around and a lot of spending. And then the Fed also was buying securities or mortgage-backed securities, treasuries with the rate at zero, but they're doing it through a program called quantitative easing. And that program actually kept interest rates incredibly low for a long time. And when they stopped that in February 22, we saw an interest rate from 3% turn into 4% literally overnight.
yeah.
Um,
Huh.
but Yeah, I wrote this. Honestly, I wrote a book on the Federal Reserve. If anybody's interested, it should be published next month. But
Good for
it talks
you.
about,
Awesome.
yeah, it talks about all that. And it just kind of unpacks that because the Fed is really our currency and our reserve currency. But it does not have to do with mortgage rates in that way.
Okay. Well, so this is a good question. I know you know the answer to this. If the interest rate comes down 1%, how many buyers come back into the market?
You'll see, we already saw it. I think we're seeing it right
Yeah.
now. You'll see it double, if not triple, the amount of buyers that we have in the market right now. I mean, to say how many buyers actually come back, I don't have a quantitative number for it, but I know it's double to triple. And I know this just by July 15th, where rates went up. And then just last week, we saw rates kind of come back down again. And today alone, DJ, I had 5 applicants apply.
Yeah. 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 I think statistically the number is for every 1% interest rate drop, a million buyers come into the market. And it's
Easily.
proportional. So if it goes down a 1/4%, you're going to get 250,000 buyers are going to come into the market. And, so it's good if you're a seller because if the interest rates come down, all these people come back into the market. And then if there's not a lot of inventory, that means the value of your house is going to go up, right?
100%.
But I do tell people that if you, let's say you're looking at a house today and the interest rate's 7, right, and you buy it for 900, it's, yeah, the mortgage is really expensive, but that house will never be that price again because it will go up with inflation. So next year, or let's say in 2 years from now, rates come down. Let's say rates went from 7, where they are almost 7 today, to like 5, and that house shoots up in value because there's no inventory on the market. You're going to be able to lower your payment, where that next person is going to end up paying over $1 million for that same house, and now they paid more for it and they have this bigger mortgage payment, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thousand percent. And that's why it's like I don't really like the um date the rate, marry the house. I mean, it kind of makes sense for a lot of folks. It was kind of like, it was just because a lot of folks I know were really trying to get in. They got a 2-1 buy down. They're expecting to have that interest rate come back to 5% because the rate at that time was 7. It didn't
yeah,
come down in time, and now they're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying a 6% mortgage, and they're kind of tight.
yeah,
So you can't also fill it with hopium, but the whole thing is you're exactly right. Even those prices, home prices appreciated. So we're
yeah.
looking at it and we're saying, okay, well, those home prices appreciated. They're already pretty tight. They can refinance when rates dip. They get rid of mortgage insurance. There's a lot of opportunity there, but you're right. Those home prices are not going to be where they are because as soon as interest rates drop, you're dealing with multiple offers on properties. We're
Yeah.
having to do, 10-day closings or 12-day closings, and it just ends up being super duper competitive. Where you don't get to
Well,
pick your property, where you get
well,
a
I think
seller credit.
again, but I think again, back to the earlier question you asked me is what advice do I give to buyers? I say if you can afford the payment today and you like this house, buy it. Don't Let's not do a whole bunch of like rate buy down. You can do a permanent buy down, get like pay a lot up
Yeah,
front, or get the house at 7%. If you can afford it, get the house at 7%. That's fine. Okay, because
100%.
eventually, it may not be this year or next year, but eventually the rates will come down. You go
Yeah,
to refi,
yeah,
and your life will be better. Because then the other advice I give to people, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Let's say I bought a house for $700,000 today, and the rate was 7, right? And then in 5 years from now, the rate goes down to 5%. I tell people, I say, hey, talk to your mortgage broker, but refi that house at 5% for 25 years. Don't do another 30 because you're going to end up paying for this thing for the rest of your natural life, right? So, like if you have for 10 years and it goes down to 5%, refinance it at 5%, but refinance it for 20 more years if you're on a 30-year mortgage. So then you're not like, so, because if you refinance it for 30 years, you have a really low mortgage, but save yourself money, pay it off sooner if you can. I said, if you really want to be a ninja, refinance it for the remaining balance of however many years you have in your mortgage, but pay that same amount you were, and then pay the thing off real quick.
that's exactly right. I don't do the term one when I talk to my clients a lot of times, but I have mentioned that. What I do tell them to do is biweekly payments. So I just did the
Yeah,
calculation. Let's say you buy property for 700K, put down 20%. The payment then
40.
would be 4,800. And then if
Yeah,
you do it at 5%, a 2% drop brings you to about 3,700. So if you're saving $1,100 a month,
yep,
still make the $1,100 a month, but split it up every other week.
yeah,
So if you do that, you're paying off your property. If you do biweekly payments as it is, would be 20 years. Now, if you paid that extra amount, that would actually bring down that mortgage, which was once a 30-year mortgage, down to a 14-year mortgage.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it's amortized for. If you do a 25, yes, you have that. It's a pyramid where they're paying this much towards principal and then it increases over the time of the loan. But if you have
Yep.
30, the only reason why I usually don't do the 30 over the or the 25 over the 30, and for some people I do if they're interested, because I do bring it up, is you don't know if you get run into that tough month where you
Yeah.
might need some extra cash and you're kind of, oh man,
Yeah.
that mortgage is a little bit more expensive. Not a lot, but if you do it this way, you could pay off that property in 12 to 14 years just by doing biweekly payments and paying the same thing you did. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I'm the mortgage guy that hates mortgages. So my whole game plan for most of my clients is get that sucker paid off,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm a
100%.
Dave Ramsey guy. That's step number five, right? Paying off your house. And I'm a huge person and proponent of trying to find ways to do that as quickly as you can. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. 100%.
Awesome. Awesome.
100%.
Cool.
All right. Well, we are out of time today. DJ, I'm gonna leave your contact information below.
Please,
Anybody
yeah.
looking, we're in Sonoma, you're Napa and Solano too, I think, right?
I'll do basically anything from the Golden Gate Bridge to Ukiah,
Okay.
and then I'll go. And I actually have paid for, and I'm a member of the MLS all the way. I can go all the way to Tahoe,
Okay.
so I can do Sacramento, Roseville, Truckee, Auburn,
Nice.
Vallejo. I have a listing in Moraga with Barton.
Right.
So anyone I want to go, I go where my clients need me to go.
Okay.
And the reason why I do it, some people are like, oh, you should stick with your little tiny zone now, because then I actually know what's going on in the other markets, and I know what people coming from those markets into my market are looking for,
Yeah.
and I know what people coming from my market into their market are looking to do, and it makes it so I kind of have a little bit of a better knowledge of what's going on in the whole Bay Area.
100%. I mean, it's funny because I was really just, a North Bay, East Bay for the longest in San Francisco
Yeah,
because, I live there. But yeah, now I opened up Southern California as well. And so we
yeah,
did NOR and SoCal, and
yeah,
it kind of lets you know what's going on, gets a pulse for other people, and then it also allows you to kind of figure out what's going on in those markets so you can bring it back. And when we have conversations like this and we do our podcast, talk about
yeah,
the stuff we're seeing, man. On a micro, looking at your market where you live in Petaluma in Sonoma County, but also on the macro, what's happening throughout the rest of the state.
yeah,
Just to bring more information, of course, to podcast and share more info and
absolutely,
intel. So awesome,
absolutely.
man. I appreciate you, bro. I'm gonna leave your contact below. And yeah, if you want to connect with DJ, make sure you connect with him. He is amazing, one of my best friends, and love this guy like a brother. So DJ, thank you, man.
Love you too, brother. Thank
All
you
right.
very much. Thanks for having me. And yeah, leave your information below and let's sell a house and let's go mountain biking because that's
Hey,
my favorite thing to do.
yeah, dude, yeah. Get on some trails. Absolutely.
You got the scars to prove it. All right.